sure if you've been to a quote-unquote Christian church, you will have heard the terminology before. And just in advance, I apologize to anyone who I'm about to offend. But it's one of those sorry, not sorry things, because I'm really just about to start speaking some serious truth. I'm not at all gonna get offended if you turn this episode off. I think if you listen in long enough, you'll get something out of it, regardless of who you are or what you do. There's these two conceptual financial incomes that quote-unquote Christian churches get. One is called offerings, which is basically it's a donation. You give whatever you have. Whatever you're willing to give to an offering. It's just it could range anything. It could range from anything. People usually give anywhere from, $1 to $5 to whatever. Sometimes they'll just empty up to whatever loose changes in their pockets and they'll give it. That's an offering. It's an act of gratitude. A thankful gesture. And that's cool. It's whatever. But then they have the other one, the tithes. That one to me is so controversial. They use the famous quote, quote unquote, the Lord demands or tithes, which really, it's a really fancy way for the leaders of the church to tax everybody that's a church member. Literally 10% of what came in their paychecks. You literally, whenever you get paid, you take 10% of what you got paid out, you throw it in an envelope, you sign it, you put down all your information or whatever, and then you hand it into the church. Now, you can say that's part of the cult, that's part of the rituals or whatever. Now it is, but why would that ritual be taxable? Why is there such a legal, man-made, taxable deduction off it? Now, here's where I'm getting at with all this. It's basically a way for the church councils to maintain certain level of wealth, certain level of income from the business that is church. Call it what you want to, but that's basically what it is. Years after my father stopped going to church and stopped being involved, he went out of his way to summarize all the receipts and checks that he had invested into a church in the course of 4 or 5 years, and it turns out he had given in tithes well over $25,000. Now, $25,000 is a brand spanking new car, a really decent car, And I'm not about to start bad mouthing it, because this talk isn't about that. It's not about the controversy behind church and all this stuff. But I am going to say all that stuff about the tithes and offerings really just being the income part of the business. You know what I mean? But whatever. Where I want to get at is this: the priests, the pastors, the preachers, whatever you want to call them. Some of the more decent pastors or preachers or whatever, really do blur the line between religion and spirituality. That's a really good preacher. That's someone who really gives you a sense of what church is supposed to be, and really convinces you that they are all about spirituality and nothing to do with the religion. Those guys are okay, and a lot of times they'll bring out some pretty some heartfelt points and stuff like that that'll really, that are really thought triggering and that are fairly emotionally moving. And I've heard some really good ones, so I'm not about to condone anyone in particular. But there are some fuckers out there, some real incredible con artists out there that are really, they literally bully people out of their money I know there's these touring preachers that will go from church to church, and like on these campaigns they call them, they'll go and they'll say, if you want to get blessed, start, toss up $2,000 or $3,000 up here so that you can have prosperity in your life, yada yada yada. Meanwhile, people fucking are eating this shit right up and are just buying into it. Meanwhile, they're fucking putting themselves in debt for who knows how long, and oh my god. But then in thinking about it, I can also understand what other things these quote-unquote preachers get out of it. It's the same thing like when a musician or an athlete or an artist or a... Put it like this. When a performer... Yeah, that's a good word. When a performer gives a clinic and he has to verbally find the words to describe what and how and why and when and what exactly is he doing and how he's doing it, so that maybe somehow the audience that they're in front of is getting something out of it. That's what clinics are. You share your information, you share your experience through verbal communication, and oftentimes through visual examples, and have somebody inspired or motivated, or even just giving somebody new insight, new approaches to whatever the performance act is. But some of these pastors, I remember my father going on a rant one time on how, there was a pastor that came in and literally made the entire congregation feel like utter shit, because, it was a matter of, Buddy was standing up there saying the tithes weren't enough for him. They weren't at an amount that was pleasant to him. So he started calling the entire congregation thieves. He's like, why do you pocket what belongs to the Lord, was basically his big spiel, and meanwhile he's screaming at the top of his lungs. He goes, why are you stealing from the Lord? Why are you keeping in your pocket what belongs to the Lord, what belongs in his house? Basically, why are you spending elsewhere what you should be throwing into the church, this and this and that? Why do you only put such and such amount? Like, one of the famous quotes was, if you were true believers, you wouldn't be conforming to just percent. You should be throwing in 15 to 20% if you truly believed in God and this and this and that. Buddy, like, what the shit is that, man? Who does that? And sure enough, people ate it right up. He doubled his income on that month. He went so far as to one time take the belt off his pants and started whipping the pulpit, just to show his fury and how he's blue in the face, and just freaking reaming everybody out because he wasn't getting enough money in his pocket. What the shit is that, man? I don't know. But you know what? I get it. They're feeding their business, and they have a group of followers that are willing to obey their every command, even if it meant licking the shit crumbs off their fucking crusty little ass. So whatever, all the power to them. If they, shame on them for starting that cult, but shame on everybody else for following it. So if they have success doing that, then by all means. I mean, that's not to say all churches are like that, but shit, a vast majority of the ones I've been to, holy fuck, man. But I guess the point that I'm trying to get to is preachers in general don't just do it for the sake of... I mean, I would imagine they primarily do it for the sake of keeping money in their pocket. But to come up with something new, even if they don't come up with something new to talk about, that they at least got to keep it interesting, such that I would imagine if they gave the same lectured sermon every single week, then people would eventually get bored and start looking elsewhere for something. So they know to become original. Now, I would imagine that would also have to do with the fact that they every single week they have something else to get off their chest or whatever. And I totally get that. Part of doing this podcast is every single time I turn the mic on and start recording these things is because I have something different to get out, something that's stirring up either in my mind or in my heart that I want to, even if I don't want to expose the vulnerability out to the world, but I think it'll be beneficial to someone if I voice what the fucked up shit that's going on in my head. And you know what, truth be told, I'm gonna make quite the confession right now. When I was little, I remember going to my dad and telling him I want to be a pastor. I must have been maybe 4 or 5, wanted to be a pastor, and it was mainly due to the fact that I would see them up there just reaming the shit out of people, just screaming into the mic, and just having fun up there, having the time of their life. They would read 2 or 3 little lines out of the Bible and then just verbally just wail on people, just having the time of their life. And I saw that they were having such fun with that I wanted to get in on that. Was really all that it was. And then not thinking about it too much makes me subconsciously watching them scream their pipes out, pipe out into a microphone for people to hear. Subconsciously, maybe I didn't even want to be a preacher. I just wanted to be a death metal singer, Fucking, oh my God, I'm gonna stray off a little bit here and totally digress somewhat. But I remember this one time, this one preacher started nailing the congregation about kids listening to heavy metal and all this shit, and how it's such a sin to growl into the microphone, how it's such a sin to start piping into the mic. And meanwhile, he's shouting into it. He's literally like getting red in the face and tearing up at how much he's screaming about this. He's like, "It is a sin to scream into the goddamn microphone. You should not be listening to it. It is a sin. If you listen to somebody screaming into the microphone, you are sure to go to hell." Like, how much more fucking ironic and controversial and contradicting do you want to get, buddy? Like, holy shit, I got dizzy just now, just imitating you. Like, what the fuck, buddy? Where do I begin with some of these guys? But you know what? I get it. A lot of these guys are so ironic, but I can understand the feeling of wanting to let loose on your feelings sometimes on the mic, and it's totally alleviating. I'm not gonna lie. And you know what? I'll totally clarify this right now. Not all churches are batshit crazy. Not all of them are really just in it for the business side of things. There are some preachers out there. There are some pastors out there that are wholeheartedly, they're in it for the spirituality. Unfortunately, it's either a matter of either really smart or they've got me fooled. But I'm totally convinced that there are some pastors out there that really are spiritually connected. And I would like to think that I'm a pretty good judge of character, because I can tell within 2 seconds of hearing somebody talk whether they're full of shit or not. There's a couple of really decent ones. Troy Matchett being one of them. I'm totally gonna give him a little shout out right here. Pastor Mark from Christ City. I'm totally gonna give you a shout out. All the way in Alberta over there.